Okay, well, first I want to start with kind of telling you a story about how you make one change and you have no idea how it's going to ripple through your organization and change everything. Colby, I think, touched on this a little bit earlier. Back in 2006, 2007, probably actually started in 2005, we were so overwhelmed with circulation stuff that it was starting to take us 4 days to get a book back on the shelf. So we went out and we said, okay, how do we solve this? And we found some great experiments going on in the Pacific Northwest with self-checkout based on RFID-based tags. We looked at automated materials handling stuff, and so we put these systems in. And quickly we realized that instead of needing 5 people to check everything out at the front and 5 people to check it in the back, we could get by with one person overseeing several checkout stations in the front and one person in the back unloading the bins. And at first, of course, all of our circulation staff were terrified. They said, oh, am I going to lose my job? And what we said is, well, you know, the job itself may be going away. That is to say, the position of circulation clerk, but we still need smart people. And we may not need you to do this anymore, and we may not need as many of you. But we think that over the space of the next year, there will be fewer of you doing new and different work for more pay. And we created a new position, a patron services technician, whose job it was not to do all this circ stuff, but to go out and work through the shelves and build displays. We gave them new training, and they got raises. Well, when that happened, I think it made some of our reference librarians nervous. And they looked at the, this kind of new class of paraprofessionals out engaging with the public and getting very close to reference questions, and they said, well, I thought that was my job. And I feel as an administrator that that was the moment when we stepped in and said, now that you have the time, now that you're not so tied to this desk, now that we have a whole new class of people to support and provide service, we need you to leave the building. We need you to go out and start to be able to understand who's out there. We need you to catalog the community. And so as this reference staff started to go out there, they came back, and then I could see that they were making the managers a little nervous. The managers were saying things like, well, I thought that was my job. And my comment to them was, now that you have the time, I need you not just to show up at a chamber event, not just to do that more passive, visible stuff. We already have reference librarians who are actually answering questions for them. Now I need you to become a community leader. And you heard Colby kind of speak to that a little bit earlier. She doesn't just go to the chamber. She is on the board of the chamber. We've had branch managers who have been chamber presidents who are, working on these community not-for-profit boards, but then in leadership positions. As I've talked about this to other libraries, then I get directors, and they get nervous, and they say, well, I thought that was my job. And my comment to them is, now that you have the time, don't just be a community leader. Get together with your counterparts, the town manager, other people. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it was Amy on the chamber board. Sorry about that. So as we get, the director getting involved in the community, they should contact the school superintendent or the town manager and say, what is the agenda for our community? So it's not just advocacy for the library. It's not just showing up at meetings. It's really trying to work at this much higher level to say, let's figure out how we make our whole community stronger. Sometimes when I've done this presentation, I have board members who come back to me and they say, well, I thought that was my job. And I say, now that you have the time, get down to the state legislature and keep an eye on what the legislators are deciding, because it's often happened that a state will roll back property taxes by 50%, doing untold damage to our communities by crippling the libraries. And if the board members who are volunteers and trustees, if they're showing up at these meetings, their opinion as community leaders has such weight, more weight than just a librarian would have. So notice that, it is a ripple effect. We just started out trying to solve a circulation problem, but notice that at every level within the organization, instead of fighting for status within the building, we were demonstrating our value outside the library and gaining extraordinary status with a whole new group of people. The ironic thing is we didn't do this to get support for us, but we wound up realizing that this was the most powerful strategy we had uncovered for earning support, because we became so indispensable to the life of our community that they couldn't imagine life without us. So So what we're doing now, and you heard us talk a little bit about how we assess partnerships. This is a veterans monument that's right next to one of our libraries. We form partnerships where the partnerships are strategic. We say we're helping you, but it's not just G Libraries help everybody. We're also asking for something in return. And that business about we are helping you, but a partnership means both of us are helping each other. We team up with people where we show up now at meetings where you look around and see all these community leaders. Here's a group of town council, chamber of commerce people, and a library representative. They expect us to show up now. We are kind of as Amy was saying earlier, if you show up and pay attention, they think you must be a leader because you're always hanging out where the leaders are. And at this point, we're not just a startup, and we're not just talking about things. We are actually improving things. Colby's example is we made Main Street better. It was stronger. It was more vital when our work there was involved with it. When Amy was writing these reports about medical marijuana for our towns, they were prepared for people coming in asking to open up new dispensaries. We made them look good, and we demonstrated our value. So the bottom line about all this is that I believe that by taking community reference seriously, by institutionalizing it, by going out and doing a strong assessment of our community, providing wonderful service to them, demonstrating the value, making them appreciate what we have contributed to them, we have demonstrated we are valuable players. We expect to be invited to the table when important discussions are going on, and we find ourselves now assuming a leadership role within the community. I believe that this is one of the most profound transformations going on in librarianship today. This is the future of reference services, not just passively waiting behind Fort Reference for people to come in and ask us questions, but actively organizing, understanding, cataloging our community, figuring out where we can have the greatest impact and making our community stronger. So those are, I believe, our main points. Happy to take the last 10 minutes or so to any follow-up questions.
This has been so exciting. Thank you for helping to take us on this journey of, that a simple question or a start in your library and how that really has grown and impacted not only the individuals in your library, but the individuals in your community and just in general. So thank you for sharing all of these pieces. I think there have been a lot of questions, or a few questions, just thinking about the impact on either paraprofessionals or union staff. And I see that Amy and Colby have done a good job of touching on that, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that to help kind of calm the fears.
And I think that the most powerful thing that I can say to this is that if you sit down to somebody and say, yeah, your job is changing, but when I got into librarianship, one of my jobs was to file the cards every night, get it from the day's circulation. That job is gone. And I point out to people that every profession, often because of technology, but not just because of technology, is undergoing this change. And so here's the opportunity, and I think the argument we make to staff is that, are you interested in a more interesting job? Do you want something that actually allows you to make a significant difference around you, to gain more status, and to make the place where you live even stronger? And I think with that kind of language, whether you're talking to union staff or you're talking to a board member, I think people get that.
And I can speak as someone who was I was a library assistant, or they called it library assistant too, which was a library clerk in circulation when Jamie first started talking about this idea. And we did experience some turnover because the job did change. But at the same time, the people who are currently serving as our paraprofessionals, we call it the patron service technician position, they get a lot out of being on the floor and helping patrons. They handle reference. Someone asked, how do you handle them handling reference questions? Well, they handle questions up to a certain point. We still have librarians on the floor. We didn't take all the librarians off the floor by any means. The librarians work together to cover each other. The paraprofessionals help us cover the floor as well. And we make sure that we have plenty of people in the building to serve the patrons. and we just do it in a different way than what we did in 2004 when I first started.
And if I can jump in here too, is that the question about eliminating jobs, the reduction in the workforce overall, which did happen over the space of about 2-3 years, was done through attrition. So we didn't lay anybody off. As people left, we would kind of restructure the job. So I think that was a powerful kind of a thing. And what that meant was by reducing the staff, we actually went in a space of a 3-year period from 2009 back to 2006 staffing levels. Well, that was right when the recession hit. And because we had invested in the self-check technologies and the automated materials handling, we saw a 36% increase in growth with fewer people because of these systems. And the new jobs that have been created were more interesting and paid better. So I think that unlike a lot of libraries who were kind of closing branches and reducing services, we were expanding services with fewer people because we took advantage of that opportunity.
Jamie, do you want to talk a little bit about whether paraprofessionals leave the building as well, or do we keep it to librarians, and then how we handle that, as well as how they handle reference questions here in the building? Or
well, I'll take a stab at it. Our notion was, and we heard a lot of discussion about, how was the profession changing? Are we deprofessionalizing librarianship? And my notion about this one is that we really need people who are skilled at the reference interview and who understand the level of services we can provide to serve as our community ambassadors to get out of the building. But having said that, there are a lot of paraprofessionals there who are wonderful at this, and I know we've had several of them in our Castle Pines branch where they may not have library degrees, but they're natural ambassadors. So I would say that it's still my intent to keep the focus of this community reference on our professional staff, but as with all things, the line isn't always perfectly hard.
And I think the issue about paraprofessionals doing reference work, it's not so much that they necessarily are, it's that they're answering the question to the best of their ability and then referring to other people around them to make sure the patron gets the question 100% answered, and that we are providing quality service, and we do that on a regular basis. So it's really about people being able to hand off to other team members when necessary, regardless of who has a degree and who doesn't, who knows the information that the patron needs. That seems to be the focus we try to
yeah, and that really underscores, as I say, the issue that I think so often librarians focus on this internal status, this internal kind of ranking of priority. We know that the patrons don't know or usually care, right? They walk in, whoever works in the library is a librarian. And if we have well-trained staff, and 85% of the time we can give them quick, correct information, and then on that 15% when we can't, there's a seamless handoff. We just, oh, well, sure, I can give you to somebody who knows the answer to that. All that the patron sees is that was good service. And it liberates our reference librarians from working with these 85% of the questions to give them the time to leave the building or to provide research for activities that are going on outside the building.
It's so exciting to think about everyone evolving and growing in the work that they do, and thinking about how we can all become better at serving our patrons, serving the community, serving the business, serving our cities. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Jamie and Amy and Colby for joining us today to really share about the impact that you've made, beginning with a small question and then really showing us how it has evolved. We want to invite you to take the opportunity to share today's webinar with your staff and start the conversation in your library and talk about how you can get outside, get out of the walls, and really meet your community and understand the needs that they have so that you can better serve them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody.